Archipelago with the 2027 calendar project. Just trying to get the stream moving on my laptop here. There we go. And there's my handy dandy little flyer thing that I have with my schedule. So last time we caught up with the basically we've got everything up until May done because we redid the March one. And, well, you're gonna see my laptop and some markers. There's a little case on my lav mic. And, yeah. So that means that we are ready to start with June. And of course, June here in Canada, anyways, is the end of the school year. So I think a lot of Americans actually they go back to school in August and then they escape in May. But let me just test because I have a whole mug full of the markers that I use for outlining, and some of them are starting to run out of ink. So now I have to test that the one I grabbed is actually working. Anyways, so we'll start with outlines, and then we will some. I think I've got a little bit of ink splatter from having this on my desk the other night. But anyways, we will get right at it. So I'm envisioning this as being, the last bell on the last day of school. I'm pretty sure most classrooms no longer have this kind of bell inside where that little arm goes and buzzes. Or if they have them, that would be the fire alarm bell. But it's kind of boring to just have something going over the intercom, right? So we are going to go with the old-fashioned ring instead. And then once everything's outlined, then we will be adding in our markers for color. And if need be, I do also have the pencil crayons as well. We have got some weird shadows, I think. That better? I don't know. I can't even tell with the markers, with the shadows these days. This is kind of an odd time of the year because I'm sitting in front of a north-facing window, but of course the sun is now starting to wrap around so that it's coming straight down the west. So I do have some weird, weird light and shadows coming in. But hey, it's better than the other half of the year where it's pitch black. So we will roll with it. Now, how do I want to do? Was debating whether I just kind of multi-stroke the letters when Ursula's screaming freedom, or whether I would outline them and color them. But you know what? Let's outline and color. And we're going to have a little bit of a play on Braveheart, as the title of the video indicated. Which would probably be a good time for me to confess I have not seen Braveheart. I'm not much of a movie kind of gal, but I have seen the memes. So I get there's something about having the face painted and standing up and screaming freedom. And honestly, Ursula in third grade probably presumably hasn't seen the movie either. So she's going off of the same information I have, which is that you paint your face and you stand up and you scream freedom. Course, if I understand correctly about the movie, she's actually kinda got this backwards. She should be doing this on the first day of school, in September, screaming that she wants freedom, but she's not gonna get it because the school year is going to continue, right? But, she doesn't know how the movie actually goes, so how would she know that, right? I'm going to switch to a lighter line weight for the calendar in the back here. And Let me just double check on iCal that I actually wrote in the correct dates for June of 2027 and that I didn't accidentally just copy June of 2026's calendar because, the days will be off. Yep, I did it correctly because June next month, June 1st is on a Monday, but I have drawn June 1st as being on the Tuesday. So yay, I actually got it right. Um, And then, of course, when we get over here, we will see that Ursula is not the only one in this classroom who has been eagerly awaiting the sound of that bell, possibly since September. Here. And since the speech bubble is kind of in the way, let's draw it in with a nice fat line, and then we know, hello, tech others and other person whose name is not in English letters, and I am dumb. I don't speak other languages, but thank you, welcome. Though I cannot pronounce your name. But then, hey, half the regular English names I pronounce wrong too, so I guess we're all even. So, there we go. Now we've got the outline. There's kind of two ways to do this sort of stuff, front to back, and not so much important with these liners, but if I'm working with a dip pen, I usually work top left down to bottom right so that I don't smudge it. But these ones, they dry pretty quick, so I don't normally have to worry about smudging. So I just have to worry about what's in front and what's in back. And therefore we can see these letters and or numbers, pardon me. So there we go. And now what I'm drawing here is kind of old fashioned. Not that I'm going to color. I'm actually halfway debating no, I'm not going to color this in as if it's an old fashioned chalkboard. First of all, because I think very few schools actually still have them. And secondly, if I do that, then I have to color around the letters instead of just leaving it blank and writing the letters. And I'm all in favor of not expending extra energy. Uh, Sometimes in, say, my the project I work on my Friday streams, Ricky B goes to see every so often. I've had something where the art kind of demanded white letters on a black background. I've had to just draw around them, but I did them a lot bigger than this and not in cursive. I think whiteboards are pretty much standard nowadays. I am definitely old enough to remember when we had the actual chalkboards, but I think the last time I saw a chalkboard in a classroom, honestly, it was probably 10 years ago, and I was taking a class at Langara. It was like a comedy writing class. And this one day, for whatever reason, I don't remember why, but we had to have one class in a different classroom. It was like in the bowels of this one building at Langara, and it actually did still have an honest to God green chalkboard. In fact, it had multiple because it had the ones where, you have the one that's actually on the wall, and then there's like one that slides down, slides sideways or top and down. No, I think it actually went up and down so that the instructor could write out all these notes on on the chalkboard that goes up and down, then sort of roll it up, and then people could still be copying those notes while the instructor went on and wrote on the backboard. And then I guess presumably by the time that's all finished, it's like coffee break time, so they could actually erase the first one without covering it up. I don't know. Um, but at that time, even I was like, wow, that's that is a relic there. Now I have to pause and think because I normally do block printing and this is in cursive. So now I have to, even though I have it in the underdrawing, I have to go, okay, so we go up, down, and up and down. Maybe, I don't know, that kind of looks right, except I think I had it where it's supposed to loop up. It's funny. I remember us in 3rd grade having to have books with the double lines in them where they had like the solid line and then the dot, 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 and then the solid line so that you would have to practice however it went. And I'm doing it wrong for sure. But you would have to practice the letters over and over and fill pages of like cursive M's and stuff like that. I don't know if they still do that nowadays. Of course, the S, it looks like that. I have heard persistent rumors that kids don't get taught cursive nowadays, but then I also hear people saying that's BS, blah, 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 blah. My kids are learning cursive, blah, blah, blah. So who knows? It probably depends on the school district, I guess. Um, Here we go. Anyways, point is, we're assuming this is a nice whiteboard. Memory serves, I mean, UBC, when I was taking classes at UBC in the late 90s, even it was, even at that point, it was about 50-50 whiteboards, chalkboards. And the chalkboards were definitely on the way out. They probably held on in like places like the School of Music for the longest. Yeah. Yeah, we can see that Miss Fardemar here has also been waiting to be rid of Ursula and her classmates, just as Ursula's been waiting to be rid of Miss Fardemar. Now, unfortunately for both of them, this comic operates on a Groundhog Day kind of a situation, although it's more of a Groundhog Year. So, somewhere in August, or actually in July, the clock is going to reset. And in September, Ursula's new teacher is going to be Miss Fardemar again. And it's not because she flunked, it's just because she's stuck. Actually, I had one year, a couple years ago, I had a whole um, storyline in September where her dad, Noah, is convinced that he's stuck in a time loop because everything seems to be repeating. And at the end of it, he mentions this to Ursula. She says, "Oh, we learned about that in school," meaning they learned about fiction. And she explains to her father that clearly there is no time loop because if there was, he would have had infinite time to practice things, which means that he would be able to win her bigger and better teddy bears at the fall fair. But he doesn't, so therefore, clearly there is no um, time loop, which is valid because if you've seen Groundhog Day, uh, Phil learns to play piano over who knows how long. He eventually becomes virtuo. I can't say the word. He becomes a virtuoso, um, because he goes to his piano lesson every day. You know, over. I think somebody once worked out the timeline, like how long it would take him um, to practice all the things that he's shown to have um, done in that movie and to achieve mastery. And it was something like, well, I've seen different estimates. Some people said 10 years minimum, and some were like, well, okay, that was like hundreds of years or something like that. So, anyways, the good news for Noah, I guess, is because I'm not doing Noah's Archipelago as a webcomic anymore, he's not stuck in the time loop. Instead, he's going to be stuck in a holding pattern waiting for me to get my acting gear and get some graphic novel stuff written. I guess means that Ursula's summer vacation's going to be a little extra long this year, although I do plan to be starting the first Noah graphic novel probably by July. But yeah. Anyways, now I gotta go and do trying to keep like background stuff just a slightly thinner line. Went heavier on the outline of the whiteboard just because if I had that closer, I would use a heavier liner. So, and we will at the end probably make some of these lines heavier too. Let's assume that Miss Fardemar has some sort of a poster here. Or maybe she's got another bulletin board where she shows off student work. Except that would presumably be empty because they'd be taking all their stuff home with them. So what we can do is draw in the border that teachers like to use. And then we'll just color it as an empty bulletin board. Although I'll probably put paper down because Miss Fardemar has tan skin. So if I put the bulletin board like a plain cork board, it's going to kind of blend in a little bit. So we will do that. Oh, the other thing I just thought about that I didn't put in the under drawing. No, never mind. I was gonna say we need to have the ceiling, except I've got that. So we're going to assume that this is uh, I can think of they're kind of like cork boards, but half height and long. Let's draw in the school intercom though. I don't know if they still look like this. Probably not, eh? But I think people will kind of get the sense of what this is supposed to be. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to have something coming off the intercom. It's going to be the principal saying, "See, so long, suckers. See you in September." Something like that. Let me think about that. Uh, and we'll give a little bit of a spiky outline. Bit of a cliche that you get in cartoons where things coming out of a speaker, TV, telephone, intercom, whatever, are going to be in this kind of a bubble instead of a smooth round one. There we go. Yeah, I guess before I draw in like the little baseboard, I'm gonna draw Ursula. Again, the whole front to back, even though I'm not totally working exactly in a front to back order, or else I would have been starting way down here. But since we are working on Noah's Archipelago, I will just take this opportunity to mention, in case I blank out at later in the show, normally we would have a Thursday stream with stuff from Noah's Archipelago. But this week we are not having that because guess who has to go to the dentist on Thursday afternoon? I'm probably still going to be frozen and talking funny at the time that the show would start. So I'm going to take Thursday off this week. So, you know, we will just have to get our Noah coloring book fixed next week. But there we have it. Um, Ursula's little feet on here. Now, the desks don't quite line up, but one figures that when kids start fidgeting, the desks are going to shuffle a little bit here and there always. So, not too much of a concern. To the thinner pen. Actually, I think what I'm going to be working on Thursday, I'll still be drawing, right? I just wouldn't be on stream. But I think what I'm going to be working on is actually some bonus coloring pages, not just for Noah, but for Zommel the Destroyer and for Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. Just one per, but I am getting ready to launch a mailing list, which I probably should have done years ago. But we're getting ready to do that. So, got a couple coloring pages that I will be getting ready before launching, probably in a week or so. So, I might be working on those on this Thursday. But Anyways, yes, and the chair is going to be off to the side. Okay, where would I'll just kind of assume there's like one chair there, and this is Lily, who's Ursula's best friend. You know, Lily would be sitting there, and her feet would be kind of hidden by the desk there. So this kid has had to put up with Ursula's shit all year, so he ain't having it. Um, well, neither is Miss Fardemar, right? But some of our other classmates are kind of. This guy's just yeah. Ursula's being Ursula, so doesn't affect him. And he knows it's time to dig into his backpack because he's about to go home. I just realized the underdrawing, I drew one of his arms and not the other one. Okay, so let's draw the part of the backpack. Probably doesn't really make visual sense as to what it is he's doing, but you know, whatever. So there we got the chair. That. So we've got one kid left who somehow has made it all throughout the whole school year, and he's still perturbed. Um, more of a blank mouth. He's still perturbed by what the hell is going on with this classmate at the next table group. Sorry, that's that desk goes, and that one. So we've got the rough outline. I'm going to do some stuff here. Yeah, I don't, I was debating because, some classrooms have that kind of gray carpet where it's almost like carpet tiles and it's ends up being a checkerboard pattern like that. Uh, that's going to be a pain to figure out the perspective of it without having drawn in guidelines first. So we're going to ignore that. It's just going to be a plain gray kind of mottled looking carpet. So now let's fatten up some of these lines, eh? The underside of Ms. Fardemar's desk. Have a bit of a shadow on there. Uh, I think actually what a lot of teachers have nowadays are, I think they call them smart boards, where it's basically a giant flat screen TV that's got like a touch feature. But kind of doesn't matter. It might look roughly the same, anyways. So we're going to and let's give a little shadow under Miss Fardemar's chin and her apple. And fatten up that line. All right. It's going to be a fairly simplified line drawing for this one. Make a student has a crush on someone. Oh, well, they all might have crushes on someone. Of course, they're about to break for summer vacation, so one would hope that they had a chance to mention that to each other earlier. I mean, they're third grade too, where I think I'm trying to remember third grade. It was like a million years ago for me. But I think people at that age, kids at that age are starting to have little crushes, but I think it also kind of often still expresses itself in terms of, teasing and pretending that they don't actually like that other person. Uh, or at least that's what people tell you if you're being teased by classmates. It's like, oh, he just has a crush on you. That's why he's doing that. Ursula tends to wear either a green shirt or an orange shirt, occasionally other colors, but she's very particular about her color choices, much to the annoyance of her father, who is very much into all sorts of wild colors. I think that's the navy blue I want. Yeah. One of the projects I want to get into at some point would be some books that are kind of centered on Ursula and her life at school and whatnot. So don't know if those will be happening too soon, but at some point. So I'll start with all the light colors, or lightest colors. Now Ursula is pink frost normally, just like her mother and her mother's mother. Now, some of the blue underdrawing will show through the markers. Some of it I may tighten up in Photoshop after all is said and done. Some of it I'm going to leave as kind of a stylistic thing. But that Miss Fardemar is roasted cashew. Hi, Grace. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I think that's the color. To think about warm beige is the Noah color. We've got cashew, pink frost reviews. I'm trying to remember which of these is the color I usually use for Lily. And I don't have any close at hand where I can go check past work. So I'll just test that. I think this one's a little more Lily. I use Bristol paper. Yes, this is Bristol board. It is this stuff, the Strathmore. And the smooth finish is the one I prefer. Now, for this kind of stuff, because I'm working with marker, vellum finish is fine. But because I do a lot of stuff with dip pen, I've been doing stuff on the vellum finish with dip pen, but then I find it does kind of like, the tip of the nibs sometimes really dig in and just scrape it up. Even on the smooth Bristol, I find that can be an issue with the actually, wait a minute. This one is not the smooth finish. This one for August, that's smooth. So this one's vellum finish. That's right. I had this one drawn before, and then the August one I drew this afternoon. But yes, I generally do use Bristol board, or Bristol paper. Um, Mostly because that's what I've got kicking around. I have done some stuff for Noah when I was still doing it a couple times a week and doing marker ones, where I would basically just do it in a sketchbook and then put a couple sheets of copy paper underneath to blot it. Um, but it sometimes would go through two or three, a couple different layers of paper, which is kind of a pain in the butt. Just this one. Kind of don't really have any medium tones, but um, but yeah, I think when I first started doing pen and ink, probably 20 years ago, um, I certainly used some Bristol board at that point, and I was always kind of under the impression that that was like the quote unquote proper way to do it. Um, but I also have like examples of Zommel the Destroyer, my first web comic, where I'm looking at it going like, oh, I was doing dip pen on just sketchbook paper. It's all very, very flimsy, but all right, now let me see here. Let's do some hair colors, and then we can. um, Or mastered the dip pen though I tried. I'm mostly a marker and pen guy. Yeah, I mean the dip pen, there are days where it makes me question my life choices. um, but I mean I guess it depends. I like when I draw with a dip pen, there's a certain shakiness to it, which I kind of like. I mean, you can get that using, say, pilot pens where the ink comes out super, phew, very loose and easy without pressure. But I do find I like the thick and thin, not all nibs will do it, right? But some of the nibs you press down and you get it just that little bit wider, which is kinda nice. Um, so I like the variability and unpredictability. What I don't like, of course, is sometimes on the underside of the dip pen, you get a glob of ink going and it'll hold for a while and then it just goes, you know, I hate it when that happens, but it's kind of I guess it's the thrill of not knowing when it happens. Plus, since um, I started streaming in January, paying a lot more attention, because I'm doing it live. So if it gets screwed up, like, well, I mean, who cares if I screw it up, right? But still, um, I've learned to kind of observe, keep an eye on the underside of that nib, and sort of the second it looks like it's going to get a little too fat, I take it out and I kind of rub it against I don't have one here, but I usually have my ink in, like, actually just shot glasses. And then at the end, I pour it back into the bottle. But yeah, I've definitely had some boo boos with it. Um, and I do like other pen and marker stuff as well. It all just kind of depends. Like, for control of the line, these fine liners are great. So, like, the coloring books I'm working on, this is it's basically those 3 pens, 1.2, and, the chisel tip, although I have a couple smaller, a couple fatter, but, so if I'm trying to be precise, then I use the pigment liners, but, if I'm trying to be expressive, like, it's probably a bad way to put it because I think this drawing's kind of expressive as well, right? But, like, the line itself, they're pretty even, or they've got the shakiness that I have shaky hands, so, but whereas, like, dip pen, I find the lines themselves kinda have an expressive quality. Um, Now this hair color will look kinda questionable, but I there was actually a guy, well, his first name I think was David, I forget his well, I wouldn't say his last name anyways if I remembered it, but there was a dude in my high school class who had auburn hair that was, like, literally like this color, and that was like, his eyebrows too, like, it was literally red. So I later on as an adult, when I heard people refer to, like, Ursula's hair color as a redhead, I'm like, "No, that's, like, strawberry blonde, right?" Because I always thought that was what redhead was supposed to be, but no, not normally, but in his case, somehow that was just his genetics. Strangest thing, just like I had a friend in, elementary school and junior high. She was Middle Eastern, but her eyes were lavender, like literal, um, like that shade. I don't know how well it probably doesn't even show up properly on camera, but like that shade with kinda like a grayish, outer ring on the iris. So, strange things happen. But anyways, uh, give this guy some brown hair, and then for Lily, Lily has blue and brown. And our friend here has, of course, super dark, and that's going to be Miss Fardemar's hair color. Actually, I need that for Lily as well. I just got like a whole bag over here, and then I've got a bin that has the alcohol markers in. I think that one's black. Yeah. Oh, this is strawberry blonde. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I mean, I have naturally, I don't think I have it anymore, but when I was, Ursula's age, my hair was dark brown, kind of like that dude's hair color. But I also had some like red and like blonde highlights, but not dyed, but just kind of look like as if I had the odd hair in there that was gold and the odd hair that was red, but which kind of meant when I got older and decided I was going to do strange things with my hair color that I could kind of get away with it for all sorts of different shades. Um, till such time as the dye started to bother my scalp and I had to quit. But I used to be a bleached blonde. I used to dye it blue black. I certainly was dyed it that shade of red multiple times. But at a certain point, you just go, I'm tired of my scalp itching. I think it's time to just go back to the natural color. Though I have thought it's not a high priority, but it has occurred to me that I might at some point buy some wigs in different colors so I can mix it up, but then, you know, just take it off at the end of the night and not have to pour a bunch of chemicals on my head. So now Lily isn't somewhat supposed to have actually, multicolored hair so much as Lily is Chinese and has naturally black hair that has kind of looks a little blue in certain light conditions. Now, this is not quite as dark as I would like it to be. I think what I'll do is I'll layer it over the brown and then that looks a little more accurate. Where she just kind of has a bit of a little bit hint of a bluish sheen. I think I will also take the black marker and just darken it up a little bit. When I was doing the comic digitally, of course, I could play with the shade to get it super dark, but still, if you looked really closely, you could still read it as navy blue. But markers were a little bit more limited, right? So there we go. Now, now, when I was a kid, the desks would all have like a brown top, even if it wasn't real wood, but pretending to be real wood, and then the undersides would be dark green. So even though I strongly suspect that's not how school desks look now, that I think is how we're going to color them, but I'm going to test the color as well. Yeah, that's the shade we're going to go for. I started doing this comic. I actually started watching a YouTuber called Mrs. Katie in Elementary, who is a third grade teacher in Florida. Because I was like, all the things I remember from third grade aren't like what the lesson plans were. So, but her students' desks are all completely black, I think, and so are the chairs. But I kind of like the greenish metal underneath, anyways, a little better. So we're gonna go with that instead. Yeah, let's see here. Ursula's shoes are always red, usually red. black or light gray underneath. Yeah, I've seen the gray underneath ones too, like, they're not it's not like the natural metal color, but it's kinda, like, in that ballpark, right? Uh, I've got a friend who, is involved with, the local, Catholic school. I should ask her what, color the desks are in there. I think actually or no, we had some event where we went into the school. I think they have it where the top is kinda like a laminate thing where it's, like, speckled gray. I don't know about the actual desk, but, like, the small tables, and then, like, the dark gray, light gray metal legs or something like that. Oh, that's annoying. That does not at all look like the color on the cap. The color on the cap is what I remember from, oh, the desk when I was a kid. Mm, definitely not that shade. Although I swear there were a few desks where it was like they were trying to make it look like it was a redwood or something that were a little bit more like that. That's the same color. Okay, I guess we have a look at what the alcohol markers have on offer. Not quite. This is funny. This is labeled as bronze green. It is not at all green. Gold tint, burnt sienna. Potato brown. That might be promising. Yep, potato brown. That's the color I want. I think this brand of markers, I don't think is actually alcohol markers, but they do kind of a bit of a similar effect, but not quite. The other thing I remember is that the desks would be only about that deep, but they were open, so you would put your all your stuff in there. So we had to use particular notebooks that were very thin, so that we could fit all of our stuff in there. At least at the elementary school I went to, that was the case. Some of the ones I've seen, more modern desks, they're wider, so they actually have like it's almost like a mini locker type of idea down the side for storage. And then the part that the kid sits under, it's just the legs and then the top, like, they don't have any further sort of stuff under there. But Somewhere in here I had a red that was kind of like a burgundy brick red. Not that one. Yeah, no. Oh, when I layer that, that will work. So, I'll assume this dude also has a red chair, but the other ones we're going to draw in as kind of a navy blue color. Forgot this other dude's arm. Is this going to be another night? I'm just looking, going like, we're an hour and 5 minutes in, and I'm about halfway done. I feel like this is going to be another night where I only get the one done, but that's okay. We have plenty of time, even if I only get one done for the rest of it, because once we have this one done, July's already done. So then we've got August, September, October, November, December, and the cover. So we'll have like 6 afterwards. You know, not a big deal if we end up. um, Running with these, I just had a really bright red color. You know what I just realized? I actually have the line down Ursula's face. She's supposed to be wearing face paint. Uh, going to do a test off to the side to see if it'll look right. Obviously, the side of her face is supposed to be white. Uh, Probably can't really do that, except for in Photoshop. I may just leave it, but I was kind of envisioning her doing a Braveheart thing And then I just had a brain fart. So there are, of course, two ways I could do that, which is number one, just do it in Photoshop. Um, or I can leave it. Or I could always trace her face and color the other one in with the Braveheart blue and white. But let's do a little test first of all. This is what happens when I color when I when I color while I talk. I stop paying attention. So we've got go and now I'm going to try a couple things. Number one, what happens if I do this? That would work. That's not the right color though. That's kind of the right color. That will work, but it's not the right color. Can do that. So, just thinking we want to kind of feel like this marker is going to do a better job. It's not 100% the correct color. So let's give her her little Braveheart face paint. Eh? If I'm not mistaken, I think Mel Gibson kind of had a stripe on along the jawline as well as the one side of his face. So there we go. And I just took the area where I've got the underdrawing showing and added that to the blue section. So there, I think that, I don't know why that makes me laugh, but Ursula's little war dance. Well, not war dance, but war declaration. She's not actually dancing, she's just yelling. Dancing would be exercise, and she's fought against exercise in gym class all year, so why would she start now? I'm gonna make her classmate's shirt blue, because then that kind of bounces the color around a bit. Generally speaking, when you use a color once in your composition, you want to repeat it a couple more times so it bounces around, or at least tones of it. Like we've got red there, for shoes there. Dude's hair is kind of, well, it's a little more purple or purple red than this kind of a brick red color, but you know, all the desks and the desks are in the same color family as Ursula's hair. We do have a couple. That's more of a warm green because it's a khaki, and that's more of like a cool Christmassy green. Um, so what I'll probably do then is make this border. We use that green as the border that Miss Fardemar has on this bulletin board. Again, because that then pulls the color and it makes your eyes bounce around the drawing as well. It doesn't have to be an exact match. I think Miss Fardamar's shirt is gonna be a very light version in that same, tone of green, but that will also it'll kind of reinforce that they have the same attitude. Um, what else? See, those 2 are a similar green even though they're not the same, but you know, um, they're related shades, we'll put it that way. Now, Miss Fardemar often tends to wear earth tones, usually very light. So, like for her, this would be like an eye melting, like bright shirt. But it is the end of the school year, and she's got a lay on, and it's kind of a tropical kind of a green. So, but usually she's one who wears beige, and she may have skirts that are that color, but she's usually more subdued. But on the last day of school, and she can't wait to be away from these little buggers, you know, that means it's party time. That means she's bringing out the big guns color-wise. Now Lily loves wearing pinks and purples, so I'm going to use that shade also as Lily's shirt. I just realized I drew Lily. Usually if I draw Lily, she's usually got ruffles or something on, so we'll assume she's wearing a very ruffly skirt. She's very much a girly girl, a Barbie girl. So, excuse me. And again, to bounce the color around, this dude is wearing a yellow shirt. Um, and then I'm going to make the background on this cork board yellow. If memory serves, on the digital versions of the comic, usually Miss Fardamar's classroom walls were yellow, but like a very pale butter yellow. So I'm going to see if I've got anything in the ballpark. Yeah, like that. So be fairly pale, but it'll. presumably Miss Fardemar would have a lot more posters up on the wall and like an alphabet somewhere and all that sort of stuff. But usually never really drew a lot of that stuff in for Miss Fardemar's room. So kind of assumed that she liked her decorating a little more low key. Um, whereas Ursula's mom, Ruth, also teaches at this school. In fact, Ruth teaches second grade. Uh, but Ruth's classroom, I think I've only drawn it a couple times, and it's always like posters everywhere. Um, and with the kind of a rock theme, like reading rocks, second grade rocks. A little bit try hard, but that's sort of vibes for her. The olive green. Do. Feel like that is not actually green when it goes on. No. Warm beige. That's kind of a corkboard color, but pearl white, that works. Always a little bit paranoid going over line work like that because in theory these pigment markers don't bleed. In reality, they always do just a smidge, right? So that's too purple. I'm gonna make the intercom kind of a gray as well. Though most of the ones I had in school, they were a little bit lighter than that beige, but they'd kind of be just like a very slightly off-white color. But It's going to be our carpet color, and then this is going to be our table legs or chair legs color. Let's make this dude clash with his own hair. Why not? I was trying to think of a bright colored shirt for him, but I think we'll just have him go red. Why not? Now, of course, if I make the bell red, then it kind of is more of an indication that it's the fire bell, but whatever. Anything else I have missed here other than the floor? Don't think so. So let's start coloring in that terrible carpet. Do have a darker gray that I will put in areas underneath um, to make them more shadowy. But first things first, let's get the main areas in. Plus, then the shadow color will layer on top of this green. I hope we still end up with enough tonal variation. Like in this area, maybe I should have made Miss Fardamar's desk a little lighter. Possibly somewhere in between these two browns, but I'm gonna see once all said and done, and also after it's dried, because sometimes it looks lighter the next day. Um, I can always Photoshop to make her desk lighter so that this kid doesn't get swamped. Um, and something that I may add, again, probably in Photoshop, but just leaving that little white gap between this kid's hair and the gray background kind of pops him out. So could also Photoshop in. Got a little bit between this kid's eyes and the desk. Um, but again, there may be some Photoshop that will need to be done. Well, it's kind of a given there will be some, at least some Photoshop for all of the calendar pages, if only because they are going to be going on to a background. That's now where is that shadow color? No. I think the last thing is Miss Fardamar's apple leaf. Yeah, so I may muck around in Photoshop with the color of the rug. Now that is a fairly accurate rug color from what I've seen of pictures of modern classrooms. So um, but it doesn't necessarily have to be accurate. It does kind of match what I've done in the comic, though. I think I'm gonna make Miss Fardamar's sign um, yellow. Leaving the baseboard white jives, right? But that was a little bit jarring, I found. Um, so we've kind of got that all set, other than any changes that'll happen later on. So it's another day where we only got the one done, but some of them are deceptive, like it's like, oh yeah, that's simple. I can get that done in 45 minutes. And it's like an hour and a half later, hour and 40 minutes later. So rather than start the next one, we will leave that to the next one. But there's one thing we can do in the last couple minutes. So I had talked before, or I wasn't really happy with, um, like that's the July one. I wasn't happy with how that background turned out. Somebody had suggested teal, and I think teal is going to work. It kind of goes against what I was saying about um, use the color multiple times. But, anyways, I had traced on my light box the shape of Noah and then the shape of Ruth. I'm fine with this, right? That light blue. Um, so we're gonna try, anyways, a teal color. And I do want to maintain the red dots. And then what'll happen is I'll scan them separately and I will Frankenstein them together. Now, it may be that when I Frankenstein them together, I'm still not happy with this background, right? And I'll just repeat the process. But since we got about 20 minutes left, not enough time to start a new one, let's just roll with playing with this one. So, going to add Ruth's angry red dots um, around her head because I kind of like that thing. And that also jives with the way I used to do um, the webcomic backgrounds where I would layer on different uh, different dots, different textures and stuff like that. So, and while I do like what I've got in the background on the top, I think I'm going to also work into the top because then I can kind of overlay and have it blend in. So, um, but we do want to, I mean, I do need to give some sort of a depth down here, like a weight. Otherwise, it's going to look like Noah's floating. But uh, it is going to be fine. So I actually think, like, I have had this, I think with copy paper, but maybe I didn't. I know I had copy paper on the front, but I think that has bled into there because there's a bit of a yellowish stain, um, which is kind of a common issue with the alcohol markers, which is just kind of annoying, but it's what it is. Um, I'm purposefully going to bring these over into the areas that I know are covered by the figures because then when I Photoshop them, we have a proper overlap. I'm just going to go ahead and add in that shadow. Hello, Ellen. How's it going? I am working on, I already finished the main drawing for today, which is the June page for next year's Noah's Archipelago calendar. But not enough time to start a new one, so I'm working on doing an alternate background for this one for July, which I can then Photoshop together. Looks so cool. Thank you. Uh, there we go. Oh, the one with the Uncle Sam. Yeah. Like Noah loves all holidays. Obviously, Independence Day and Canada Day are real ones, and he is combining them with his beaver costume with the Uncle Sam hat and whatnot. He also likes fake holidays. Um, so, but of course, for July, we've got a couple to choose from in the real holiday thing. So, yeah. So when I end up scanning and doing layering in either Photoshop or Procreate, I think I can do the blending module. Like I would probably scan this one and have it on 2 layers. So I would cut out Noah and Ruth's speech bubble, and I would make those opaque, like normal blending mode. And then the rest, I would have like an overlay. So they both what I'm doing now and what I already did would show through. At least that's the idea. Yeah, put that down there. Sometimes it takes kind of repeating layers to build up thickness and whatnot. Um, so I'm going to also add these kind of teal. So I actually don't mind the green, but I think whatever I was trying to do here just didn't work. So um, when I still did Noah as a web comic and did it in Procreate, sometimes I would have like a scene like that where the background is like the setting, right? And sometimes I would have a background kind of more like this where it's almost like a psychological, Noah's happy, he's calm. So therefore we have the pink bubbles up there and here, and Ruth is annoyed, deeply annoyed. So she's got the red bubbles, and we'll kind of do something similar to here, but make it more like lightning bolts or whatever. So, and then, I mean, hey, the colors. So we've got Uncle Sam, so red, white, and blue, and then Canada, white and red. So we're gonna have the reds, and then even though it's turquoise, it's a shade of blue and whatnot. So it kind of echoes. I know she's got a speech bubble there. Uncle Sam always reminds me of "To Pimp a Butterfly" by Kendrick Lamar. I'm not familiar with, I don't know a lot of Kendrick Lamar songs. The one I know is, the one where I think he's, like, going after Drake, "They Not Like Us," which is kind of funny. From what I hear, when the States beats Canada in, like, different sporting events now, they play that, which is kind of funny to me. Um, and of course, there's that line about A minor, which you kinda hear and go, "I shouldn't laugh, but that is funny." Uh, and, well, there's allegations about it, but yeah. What's kinda strange is we then get the whole thing about that we're supposed to like Drake instead, and it's like, I didn't pay attention to Drake beforehand, so why would I pay attention to Drake if he's, fighting with an American, singer? Who cares, right? But, um, just thinking, should I have some green going down here? Nah. I think I am gonna kinda keep the background. Um, Now I gotta try and figure out what that green was. Yeah, that looks like about right. Oh my god, are you serious now? Ah, just a little bit. I mean, there's some oddities, let's just say, with Canadian culture and dislike of Americans and all that. So, and sure, it's worse in the last 10 years, but it's been also been like that as long as I could remember. So, you know, but the funny thing is that, say with our artists, and I assume that this would be the case with Drake, just like any of them, that there's kind of a weird thing where it's like, um, they get ignored until, when they're hometown, they get ignored until they go and they become famous in the States and in Europe. And then when they come back, then there's like a combined thing of kiss their ass because now they're famous in like the real world or whatever, but also despise them because they sold out. Like it's a very weird thing. Um Nickelback being like just one of the most egregious examples of that. Um Although obviously you had the internet phenomenon of let's all shit on Nickelback. So it's not just that, it's also um kind of social media driving it and whatnot. Um But yeah, things get weird. Um, and then, of course, the Canadian media, like the CBC, they have certain artists they love and will defend and almost go on the attack of if anybody says anything negative about them until they change their minds. Um, One example that came to mind is there's a lady named Buffy Sainte Marie. And for going back to the 70s, there was some question about, she had said that she was First Nations, like Native, and she was the darling of the CBC and whatnot. But even in the 1970s, apparently there was some question where I think somebody, I want to say from PBS or whatnot, um, talked to actually one of her relatives. He said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. She's Italian. We're Italian," and that it the reporter got in trouble over that. The family member who said it supposedly got legal threats. Like, there was a whole thing. And the national broadcaster, the CBC, vigorously defended her over the years, and anybody who said anything, they were, a monster, blah, 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 blah. And then out of the blue, somewhere a couple years ago, I guess she upset somebody at the CBC, and then they did an investigative journalism thing and found out what had been rumored about since the '70s, and they did a whole expose and all this. I mean, I don't know if the CBC were the ones who first did it, but they definitely ran with it, and they were on the attack to, like, cancel her and all this stuff. Um, so but it was like, okay, you guys covered for her for, like, there was a whole, like, running interference for her for a long time when she was the media darling, and then it was like, "Okay, we hate you all." So it gets weird, like, um, I think I have heard that there's certain, I don't know if it's like, because 'cause I've heard people say that similar things happen in Australia. I don't know, I've never been. But it's a almost like a colonial thing where it's like if you get too big, then you're disliked, um, unless you're deemed, like, still one of the people. It's a very strange phenomenon. Yeah, Drake, there's a lot of people who don't like Drake. Like, I know very little about him. Uh but a lot of the things I know are things I've heard and people who don't like him and whatnot. I think, yeah, definitely can't compare yourself with the king of pop. Um, it's kinda like, there's an old song, I wanna say from the '90s, a band Incubus, a song called, Megalomaniac. Like, I always thought it was written about Bono. Apparently, the singer has said, "Oh, I didn't have anybody in mind." I heard other people say, "Oh, it was about, like, a former friend of his," like, whatever, but the main thing, main line in it about, "You're no Jesus, you're no effing Elvis." Like, it's something that I think a lot when you get into that level of fame and you're suddenly surrounded by people kissing your butt and telling you that everything you think is genius, like, it's very easy to fall into that trap, and it is a trap. Um, so, um, and some people, if you get that famous, people will have knives out for you, but also some of the people who become that famous, it's like, then it's their excuse to treat other people badly to make up for, I don't know, all the times when they weren't famous and people ignored them, or who knows, right? So, yeah. So it wasn't meant for someone where it's, oh yeah, that song is like I said, I always thought it was about Bono. I don't know why I thought that because I don't think those guys associate at all, but you know, um, it's like I'm trying to remember now who I can't. Oh, now it's gonna drive me crazy. I don't remember who it was about, who it was by, or the name of the song, but there was some song that was apparently person wrote it about Marilyn Manson. Uh, oh, now I remember. It was the artist is a Canadian, like, swing revival artist named Big Rude Jake, and it's now gonna drive me crazy that I don't remember the name of the song offhand, but um oh, it's called "Let's Kill All the Rock Stars." Now that but it was apparently sparked by him seeing Marilyn Manson going like, "Who the hell is this guy? Who does he think he is?" And then, I mean, it's not just about him, I think he's also skewering Madonna in another verse and all that, but it's a funny song, you know? But, sometimes the behavior, is asking for it. So, uh Oh, I mentioned Bono. Here's a funny story. I don't know if you've ever heard of a stand-up comedian named Russell Peters, and like he sells out arenas. Like he's a big guy. I heard some interview. I think it was from a few years ago, and they were asking him about like worst gig he ever had, and he was saying it was something. It would have been in the mid 2000s. And he was talking about they got hired to do stand up at some like fundraising event for AIDS research, and all these huge A-listers were there. Um, and like Bono was one of them, and like Bill Gates was there, and I think the Clintons were there. All this sort of like huge, influential people were there, and he's told to go up and quote warm up the crowd. Well, they're all stand. None of them are seated at the table. They're not ready for whatever because it was one of those like dinner and entertainment type of fundraisers. Nobody was sitting down. They were all like standing around talking in the midst of his set. And because of course they're there to do business, right, and meet their friends and all this stuff. Um, Anyways, at some point he got pissed off with being ignored. So he yells into the mic, he's like, "You're all terrible. I hope you all get AIDS. Go to hell," or something like that. I'm kind of butchering it, but basically it was like that. And then when I figured out the dates, I looked at it and it's like the next U2 album actually has a song called Stand Up Comedy. And suddenly Bono is mentioned in interviews like, yeah, stand-up comedians, they get to say what nobody else wants to. Now, granted, this is also probably around, no, I think the stand-up comedy actually came out before, I think that was No Line on the Horizon was the album, and that would have been 2009. So it was a couple years before the South Park episode. So the song wasn't referencing South Park, but it did kind of go through my mind. It's like, because apparently Bono was standing right in front of the stage, like 4 feet away from Russell Peters, with his back turned and all this. Well, it's like, oh, maybe what Russell yelled got through Bono's skull, you know? And then this other song came up, although I can't remember the lyrics to it offhand. I don't think it's actually really, you know, uh, anything to do with that incident, but it's just kind of fun to see how that sort of stuff plays out and what inspires what and all that. It's like, I mean, the classic story of in hard rock is that Aerosmith's "Dude Looks Like a Lady" was written about. Steven Tyler was in, I don't know, the Whiskey a Go Go or the Rainbow Bar and Grill or something in LA, the height of the hair metal era, and he sees this what he thought was a hot blonde, and when the blonde turns around, it's Vince Neil from Motley Crue. You know? So that apparently inspired that song where Steven Tyler was like, "Oh my god." You know? All right. I think I will have one of a little bit of this Ruth's annoyance red come through on this other side, just because that will kind of trail through his beaver tail. Uh, just thinking if I want to add anything else. I think that's probably going to be pretty good. I mean, obviously, I don't have my light box here, but we've got this sort of detailing around where this is. They will end up overlapping if I do the background the way I'm saying with like the overlay method. And then I'm still maintaining this green. And then there's the shadow underneath Noah. And then because these are alcohol markers, that yellow kind of ate into that and it shows. So I think we got makes me kind of sad miss out our conversation. Like he's talking to the wall. That's okay. I mean, hey, you can always do the rewatch. And whatever I was blathering about, somebody else probably who's not in the chat just listening and be like, "Oh, okay, I'm following along." Um, which I guess would be a good way for me to lead into saying what I'm doing now with these. I don't make them public immediately after I go off air just because apparently then it can take, up to 24 hours for not Facebook, YouTube to process the video into high quality. So I guess if I made it public right away, then sometimes it kind of looks grainy or bad. But sometime tomorrow afternoon, it will be made public after it's done processing. So people can definitely check it out again later. Um, yeah, so that is one of the fun things with the live stream type of thing is like, yeah, there's times where I just shut up and draw, and then there's times where I babble on. Uh, You know, it's all there for anybody who wants to, go hear it or whatever. Think while I'm thinking of this, I am because this is a very pale blue, I am just gonna kind of, go in with a medium, if I can find one that's in the same color family, but not being too dark. That might be too dark. I just wanna give a little bit of a shade, kind of a that's virtually the same color. Um, do 68. There we go. So, just gonna even on this just the slightest little bit. Like, I think what I've got here outside of Ruth's red dots is going to go away entirely. I do that, plus what's there, plus the layering, that's gonna alright, I think that's gonna once that's all combined, I think that's gonna be a lot better. So, what did we do today? Well, we started with Ursula on the last day of school, doing her little Braveheart moment, screaming freedom from the top of her desk. Of course, she's doing it when the last bell's ringing, so like freedom was happening anyways. But she's got to be melodramatic on the last day. Miss Fardemar, she's got her Hawaiian lei on. She can't wait to be away from these little buggers. So she's also glad to hear the end of the bell, saying finally the principal's over the top of the loudspeaker saying so long suckers, or I mean see you in September. And then the various reactions on Ursula's classmates. So that one took a lot longer. I may, like I said earlier, because this fellow's got darker skin, and then the darker wood, and then the darker gray. I may in Photoshop, I may change the color of that carpet and even the color of that desk so that he pops out a little more. So, yeah, there were times I liked being at school. There are also a lot of times where I just couldn't wait to get to leave. So definitely relate myself as well. And this kid's ignoring it all because he knows he's got real freedom coming up immediately. And Ursula is going to be a few seconds behind because now she's got to get off the desk and then grab her backpack and run out the door. Whereas this kid's going to be out the door in a split second because he's ready. And then we looked at and revisited the background on the July. I just now added this kind of darker teal to make it kind of make it more like a burst or whatnot, put more emphasis towards Noah. And then because I had previously traced the outline of Noah and Ruth on my light box onto another sheet of Bristol board, I've remade the background. Um, and then when it's time to scan everything, we'll do multiple layers and hopefully it all works out. So that means we is done for the night. Freedom! Just kidding. I do like live streaming, unlike Ursula in school. So, rest of this week, tomorrow, I'll be working on inking Selma the Destroyer, um, cast portraits, and I think I need to draw some of those. I think I've got 2 ready, but I will need to do like 4 or 5. So I gotta draw a few more tomorrow morning. Thursday, there won't be a live stream, because I gotta go to the dentist, and I'm gonna still be frozen and talking funny and feeling sorry for myself. So, there won't be a stream on Thursday night. And then Friday, I will be inking Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat. A couple more pages, and I do believe they are part of the B story with the intrusive ads, so it's gonna be a reflection on the last couple pages we did, although the ad B story pages tend to ink up very quickly, so we may be able to get into the next couple pages of the story as well. And I think if we manage to do all that on Friday, I think we're at that point a third of the way through the book. Um, but if not, then, next Friday will be a third of the way through the book, which is to say halfway through what I'm going to ink on stream because the back third, I'll do that off camera so as to not give away spoilers for it. And then, of course, next week, Monday Miles, Tuesday we'll be doing the August picture for this calendar. And then Wednesday's Amo, Thursday, the Noah coloring book, and Friday, more Ricky's. So thank you all for watching, and thank you for your patience for those of you who've made it this far into the show. And we will see you again real soon. Bye for now, and bye-bye, Ursula. Enjoy your summer freedom. The joke is, of course, as per the comics, that her father puts her into various creative day camps for the entire summer. So, she's out of school, but she doesn't get to just sit on her butt and play video games and watch cartoons like she always hopes. But, you know, hope springs eternal that this year will be totally different. Before leaving, you're starting to study animation. That is awesome. Animation is one of those things I would love to learn it. I don't think I have the patience, but I have watched a few tutorials on like doing like animatics or very simple animation, even in like Clip Studio Pro, and it looks super cool. So who knows? One of these days I might join you in that pursuit. But that is awesome. Congrats. And we'll see you again next time. Alin and everybody else who's watching, take care. Bye.